So how did the first Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras come about? Well, there had been activist organisations from 1970 and some early demonstrations and different activities from about 1971. And in 1978, Ken Davis and Annie Telvey got a letter from San Francisco asking for international gay solidarity because of the Briggs initiative that was before the California legislature, and it was very anti-gay. So it covered people in schools, whether you're a student, a teacher, or a cleaner, or whatever. And if you talked about any gay issues, you could be sacked, basically. So that was part of the rise of the religious right in the US and also in Australia and the UK. And they were sort of fiercely, absolutely opposed to homosexuality, and they were nasty about it too.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you think the Gough-Whitlam government at the time was helpful in progressing the issues of LGBT at the time? Because they were more of a progressive government at the time?
Yes, and I think from 72 to 75 we did have a very progressive government, and I'll probably come back to a bit more of that later as well. But anyway, Ken and Annie got this letter from San Francisco. It went to other places as well. It wasn't just us because we're special, but it came here. And they contacted a range of existing lesbian and gay groups, religious groups, university groups, CAMP, our first activist organisation, and also gay liberation groups as well. And I went along to some of the meetings, and we were planning to have our morning march, which the Saturday morning demonstration around the city with speeches at the end was a bit of a fixture of the activist calendars around the time. And we're also going to have a forum about the religious right in the afternoon. And a couple of weeks beforehand, some people came along and suggested we add a fun nighttime event for our community. And that was dubbed the Mardi Gras by Mark McMahon, the co-president of CAMP, and that name stuck. And we're the only gay and lesbian Mardi Gras throughout the world. There's a lot of different Mardi Gras.
That was a really good suggestion.
We thought so too. And it stuck. It captured people's imaginations. So basically we swung into action with the extra event. The lesbian poster squad started. There was leafleting on Oxford Street, and there was about 20 gay and lesbian bars along here at the time. A lot more than there is today. And there was coverage in The Australian, which, believe it or not, was a progressive newspaper at that time. And there was also coverage on 2JJ, the radio, the youth radio station at the time, now Triple J. So there was a bit of coverage. Yes. There's quite a bit of coverage, and of course our networks got going as well to let people know. So we started gathering at 10 o'clock over there where that pink tent is. About 10:30 we set off, going down Oxford Street. It was going to be a street party as much as a parade. And some people were dressed up. Some people had placards. Some of us just wore the jeans and jumpers we normally wore because we were daggy people with no fashion sense at the time. We were activists and we were serious, you know. And
one thing just to note was the first Mardi Gras and a few subsequent years was actually in June. It was in winter. So, and that was to time with the 9th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. So part of what we were doing is recognising the Stonewall riots as well as activism around the religious right movements that were happening internationally, which is why we were all rugged up that night.
And I might say that by that stage, I think the rainbow flag was prevalent in San Francisco, but here we had the pink triangle of the homosexual men in the Nazi concentration camps, and in recent years we've added the black triangle of lesbian women, gypsies and prostitutes and they wore that in the concentration camp as well. So that's still our symbol that we have today. So, any questions about how this first Mardi Gras came about?
We're going to talk more about it en route when the bus is just down there.
Any other questions? Okay, so we started off having a fun time. We had a single flatbed truck. We had one float essentially, with a sound system on the back, and there was 2 songs playing: "Ode to a Gym Teacher" by Meg Christian, and Perrin and Harriet are going to sing every verse with me later. I remember it all. And "Glad to be Gay" by the Tom Robinson Band. So
over and over through one speaker.
yes,
We did. We did have a permit.
Friday. Yeah. I'll be wearing
we had a
About a
police.
lot of good that did. Anyway.
So we started off in high spirits. I think some people might have been apprehensive. I was young and naive and thought this is fabulous to be out on the streets at night. And it had been suggested to be a nighttime fun event for our community because it was thought that people, correctly, that more people would come. You'd have a wider range of people coming along than us strictly activist type people, and that was true. And it wasn't all just LGBTIQ people. There was people friends from our household, straight friends, a whole bunch of inner city types.
So it was a community event.
It was more a community event, a broad community event. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Otherwise, we're going to head to the bus.
Yes. So we're just about half a block up that way. So I'll take the lead.
I'll bring up these rowdy Germans at the back.
Drive us around the block, and we're going to come out to the top of Oxford Street, where we will resume the story briefly, and then we'll talk about what happened at the bottom of Oxford Street and who that involved. And you might be able to guess who that involved. Who do you reckon it involved? Yes, the police. Okay.
I don't know, I've always been driven. I don't know where it came
How did I find out about the first Mardi Gras? By, word of mouth today.
So folks, this is where we set out very optimistically, and we were happy and gay as well, down Oxford Street. Some were dancing, some were sauntering, some were strolling, talking to friends, some people in costumes, some not, some with signs. But one of the things we were doing along this area, which is the Golden Mile, or was the Golden Mile, with 20 odd gay lesbian bars, was we were yelling out of the bars and into the streets. And people were going into the bars and yelling out to come out, for people to come out as well. And whilst we had about 500 people up at the top, we think, it did grow as we moved down Oxford Street here. And it was still a parade at that stage. Okay, so it was still very much a parade at this stage, with some people coming out of the bars to join us. And in a minute I'll talk about what happened towards the bottom of Oxford Street here. And remember, we had a permit to march at this stage.
Diane, how do you differentiate the difference between a parade and a march?
And about here, the police really started to speed up the truck. They were one float at the start, and a little bit further on where Jason's just going to stop to be turning the bus, they grabbed the keys and tried to grab the driver. The crowd grabbed him back, and they essentially stopped what was a parade. We were supposed to go into Hyde Park and read some messages of congratulations from other places around the world, including San Francisco. Telegrams in those days, you know, the urgent email of the day. And instead, it turned into a bit of a melee, and we linked arms and marched up towards King's Cross, the red light area of Sydney, and also, if you like, a secondary gay venue area as well. There'd been gay venues in that King's Cross area for some time, and this is where that started to happen. And it turned from a parade really into a protest, because we had about 1,000 hyped up people at that stage, and there was a cry of "to the cross," and basically we just were defiant, and it was exhilarating, but we didn't quite know what we were marching into either. So we linked arms and marched along here and up the next street, which is William Street, the main street up to King's Cross, where we'll be turning up. And we were young and fit in those days, so it didn't seem like a very long distance uphill, but it seems a bit more like that now.
I know on this side is the war memorial, and so there's
In the first 2 or 3 rows of us marching up here and linking arms, and I didn't see this personally, but other people later told me they saw police wagons blocking the side streets as we were going up, and also going across the bridge. You can see just up there below the Coke sign, coming across to the main part of King's Cross, the main part of Darlinghurst Road in King's Cross. And we were charging up here. We were defiant. We were exhilarated, and as I said before, young and fit, charging up here. So many of us didn't see that. We were preoccupied with chanting and getting ourselves up here. And where we take the left turn at the top is where the main part of the situation with the police, which was basically a police riot, happened.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, that should be. Is that
So folks, we marched up to this fountain and we were starting to disperse, but by that stage police wagons were blocking off this street here and the side streets, and more people were pouring up from William Street, and who were eventually surrounded by police and police wagons. And we're going to hop off here and continue our talk over near the fountain there, which is where we stopped and started to disperse.
makes it all the more real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go the other side there. It's a bit quiet. Okay, so this is King's Cross. We passed down the main part of King's Cross. Back in the day, it was a very diverse, very vibrant community. So we had the famous lay girls were here, which was showgirls. So trans and drama queens, drag queens, all performing. It was spectacular. They had various shows every night, and it was very, very popular, the show. And also late night bars, clubs. It's been cleaned up now, but it was the seedier side. And for us, actually, it was a natural place to come as a second area. It was a very accepting community because it was very diverse, and often when people came from overseas, this is the first place they'd come to because they'd heard all about the cross. So we just came up here because this was our second place too, because it was a transgressive community and we were part of being transgressive. So we arrived here and pretty much to discover we were hemmed in by police.
So we were hemmed in. There were police wagons came up behind us. There were police wagons across the end of that Darlinghurst Road thing, just near where the fountain is. Some of us at the front of the protest, which was by that stage, had gotten to the fountain and started to disperse. And we kind of made our point and we were ready to go home, basically. So we did some rebellious gesture. We came up here and we thought, we're going home now. We didn't have the ending that we'd planned to have in Hyde Park, but we didn't get a chance to disperse because the police were supposed to, at that stage, under the law, give you a warning to disperse and then give you time to disperse. But guess what happened? They didn't give us time to disperse. They started grabbing people bodily, throwing them into the police wagons, and some people I know of got their heads bashed on the sides of the police wagons. Other people got their legs, the door slammed on their legs. Some people were in shop doorways and ran out and opened the doors and let people out again. There was tugs of war between friends pulling their friends back and the police. There was quite a lot of very violent stuff going on. Now, what I've also got to say is that, following on from what Robyn said, is that there were sex workers, trans people, Indigenous people, street kids, local businesses of the night, proprietors, that sort of thing. And they were all subject to the brutality and corruption of the Darlinghurst police, the same way as other businesses around here were. So every business, whether it was a legitimate business or a business run sort of beyond the law, had to pay money or give alcohol to the police. And one of our friends, his mother and grandmother were licensees of a pub down in Double Bay, and they had to pay money and alcohol to them all the time, and they were a proper licensed hotel. And some of the late night venues sort of operated in a grey area of licensing where they could be open and sell liquor as long as they sold food or had entertainment. And I remember up at Ruby's lesbian bar on a few occasions seeing these totally almost petrified plates of sandwiches sitting around because that was the food we were supposed to have. And of course some of the entertainment that happened in the gay bars and the fabulous shows were sort of made it allowable under the licensing laws at the time. So that's a long-winded way of saying there was a lot of people who were preyed upon by the Darlinghurst police. Because of the area they covered, they had a lot of licensed premises, gay bars, places that were sort of not quite running within the law, and many other places who were. So they got money off them all the time. And
It's a bit like the mafia.
the police mafia, yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was.
Darlinghurst police were probably the most corrupt police in Australia at that time, and they threatened all kinds of businesses, and if you didn't pay up, then they would raid your premises and arrest patrons.
But look, we were up here, and I was in a shop doorway with a friend. Joe had me and Ken Davis in a shop doorway. Ken was wearing a frock, a country and western frock. It was radical drag. It wasn't full-on drag, but it was send-up drag. I had my lower leg in a walking plaster because I'd broken my foot in a motorbike accident, because many young dykes rode motorbikes in those days. And our friend was protecting us, and it meant that I had you can never say good view, but a shockingly clear view of the brutality that was being meted out, and of the gays and lesbians and trans people and locals who were fighting back against these notoriously vicious, corrupt, brutal Darlinghurst police. And that trauma, all of us are involved in that, carry some trauma from that, and that trauma still is there. And bottom line is that we fought back. They didn't expect it. We were on their turf at night, which is why they were so vicious, I reckon. We were on their turf at night. They also were not wearing their identification numbers. They took those off, which was illegal. Police then were recruited on size, and they were 6 foot tall and built like brick shithouses. And
recruited on lack of neurons.
our German friends can probably work out what that means. They were very, very tall, built like bricks. Yes. So they were grabbing people, and in the end they arrested, grabbed 53 people. We didn't know the numbers at the time, but a lot of our friends were thrown in paddy wagons, in police wagons, and they were driven away. And we knew they were going to the Darlinghurst police station, which is where we're going in a little while, because that covered this area. And I might say, just while we're talking about that the police, in the 80s, they were disbanded because they were so rotten and so corrupt. And that command was split into the King's Cross police station, which is behind us, and the Surrey Hills police station, which is down the other side of Oxford Street. So it was just so corrupt that the government ended up disbanding them.
Do you think they were working on instruction on that night? Was the government saying do this, or they were just independently deciding?
They were a law unto themselves. They could not be controlled.
It took over 10 years before they realised how corrupt they were.
Oh no, it was just moves were made over a period of time. So yeah, and
I think it was possibly just to repress the people of the area because they didn't want change.
Yeah, and they wanted it was their money they were getting.
Absolutely,
yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
And if they kept repressing people, they could still get money out of it.
Yeah. Any other questions at this stage?
This was the Rex Hotel behind us here, wasn't it? The old Rex, which was a famous haunt for gay men in the 70s. Was that also under protection?
Well, you'd imagine so.
Yeah.
Yes. And the front bar was a gay bar, and the back bar was the straight bar, which is unusual. Usually the other way around. Usually they hide the gays down the back. So this was really a secondary area with a number of gay venues as well. So
So if the police were that corrupt, and if everyone knew it, how organized was the money collection? As in, did it get shared amongst all levels in the police? Did it go only to the police who were doing the collections? How did that work?
I don't know, but I suspect it got shared around a certain amount, and I suspect different people might have got out and got protection money at different stages, but everyone was doing very well in that corruption racket. Yes.
So was there any specific action that triggered the police to start arresting people, or did they just gradually move in and there was no distinguishing event that occurred that triggered it all?
The specific thing that caused them to entrap us up here was that we broke away from them stopping our parade. And they obviously got on their radios and had the wagons come up and circle up here because they could hear us saying we're going up to the cross. And they could do that through the back streets and come up here other ways. And many of us didn't see those wagons coming through. Yeah.
So basically, as you were leaving, they just started arresting people?
As we were leaving, they started organising so they could entrap us up here and arrest us up here. Yeah. Did you have another question? Yes.
I was just interested exactly where the paddy wagons were. You said they blocked off down here.
Probably about where the fountain was, across the street.
Yeah.
They blocked all the side streets.
Including down here somewhere?
This wasn't a plaza at that stage, so it would have been blocked off.
Yeah.
And they came up near the Coke sign as well and blocked off all those streets as well. Yeah.
And then which is the doorway you were in?
I haven't been able to account. It was about two-thirds of the way, or about a third of the way back down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but shop fronts may have changed, and there was, it was quite a deep doorway, so there was room for three of us in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did they ever come towards you, or they?
They were pretty busy.
Yeah.
They were pretty busy being horrible and attacking our people and attacking the locals. And some of the locals actually threw rubbish down from above to try and impede the police as well.
And they were throwing rubbish bins at the police too.
There was rubbish bins and the metal lids of rubbish bins being thrown through police wagon windscreens at times as well.
And when women were being thrown into the police vans, there were other women who were trying to pull them out as well.
Oh yeah, that happened. Quite a lot of that happened.
Yeah.
Quite a few people were rescued from police vans, pulled out. And as Diane said, pulling people away from the police. So the police would have one side and we would have the other, pulling backwards and forwards. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But actually the person I was sharing a house with at the time, she was in the centre of one of these tug of wars with the police on one side and us on the other. And a newspaper photographer took a photo of her and she appeared on the front page of the newspaper. She was working at a private girls' school, high school at the time. And that did not go down very well.
She had curly hair, didn't she?
She had an afro at the time, and that was the rage, afros. She had a very big afro, and she also used to wear this shaggy vest. So you could not mistake that was her.
Which newspaper was that printed in?
Sorry?
Which newspaper was that printed in?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe the Mirror or something.
One of the tabloids.
One of the tabloids. Yeah.
Were any charges laid against anyone who were arrested?
Oh yes, and we're going to get onto that at the next stop. Yep.
Okay, so my question goes back to, you had a permit for a march.
Yeah.
But you keep referring to it as a parade. Did that make any difference in the eyes of the police?
No. We called it a parade because we were doing something, having a festival, a street party, a parade. But it was still, we had a permit to march and continue on into
Hyde Park?
Into Hyde Park down there, and also, have a few speeches, read some telegrams, play the 2000th rounds of the two songs we had.
Two songs.
Did you end up doing that here? When you got here, you didn't have any speeches or anything when you got here?
No.
Because
we were surrounded by police.
Because it was too much going on.
And the truck had been confiscated back at the park. Yeah. And it was because of what happened. Because we didn't get to finish what we were trying to do, that we all came up here.
And you still couldn't finish it once you got here because
they
were so intimidatory.
We were attacked. We were attacked, basically. Yeah. We were certainly attacked.
Physically assaulted.
Yeah. Many were. Yeah.
How were the press notified? Who notified the press about this?
There were some press photographers up here, or one or two.
Yeah.
But there were also police reporters.
Did the police tip them off?
Don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, at the back. follow on from that, so there were many photographers, were there filmmakers there? Like what sort of documentation was there? Like I've seen a few photographs or some film. Look, Digby Duncan was filming her film which became Witches, Faggots, Dykes and Poofters, and she had some footage of up here and of the subsequent demonstrations that were part of the Drop the Charges campaign. And Branko Gheicha took quite a lot of photos up here as well. And we'll be flogging our book, which only came out 2 weeks ago, which has some of those photos in it later, and you'll be able to see them. But look, what we wanted to do was tell the story in the places that it did happen, and that's what we're doing today. And what we're going to do now is move down to the Darlinghurst Police Station, because those of us who weren't taken away or who'd run away to hide and preserve themselves went off to the Darlinghurst Police Station afterwards, and because we knew that was where they were taken. Yeah. So we'll hop on the bus and we'll talk further once we get there. Up above the awning, you can see police station in the stone up there. So it had other signage on back in the day, but that is still marked police station.
All right, so this is formerly Darlinghurst Police Station, and we'll be talking about the various activities here. It's now currently a community health centre, although that purpose will change, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. So on the way here we went past Green Park and the notorious Wall.
Yes.
The Wall used to be a pick-up place for either paid or unpaid sex. It was also the place that the Darlinghurst police used to frequent and arrest people quite frequently. They also engaged in entrapment, so would pretend to be there to engage in sex, and then when a man indicated interest, they would be arrested and brought here to the Darlinghurst Police Station. In Green Park there is the bandstand. The old bandstand has been repurposed and is part of the new Pride Museum, 𝐿𝐴𝐻 Sydney. We also have an exhibition on here at the National Art School, which is the recreation of Ward 17 St Vincent's Hospital, which is the old age ward. So St Vincent's Hospital is on the other side of Green Park. And in new breaking news, so 𝐿𝐴𝐻, it's a new organisation to establish a Pride Museum here in Sydney. It's been on the drawing boards for a long time, and we finally got some funding to have 2 temporary exhibitions, the one in Green Park and the one at the National Art School. It's just been confirmed that our permanent home will be the Darlinghurst Police Station. Now, some people feel some concern about that because it is a place of pain and trauma, but we also feel that as a movement, we always reclaim things. So we say f you to the pain and trauma, we're taking this back. So this will be our new home, and we're really pleased about that. Now we're going to tell you some of the horror stories.
Back to the pain and trauma.
Back to pain and trauma.
Look, so we marched up here. Again, we were young and fit, and we just charged up, you know. All sorts of people came up. Some people went away, and others of us were outside here, and we were chanting and singing. We knew people were inside. We knew it was a very dangerous situation for them inside the cells at the Darlinghurst Police Station. We could hear people being bashed, and they could hear us chanting and singing the African American spiritual, "We shall overcome." And we eventually and mostly did overcome, because there were 53 people arrested and charged because of those nighttime activities up in King's Cross. and a couple of other, 3 or 4 people underage who were let go because there was too much paperwork and they didn't want to hassle with people under 18 basically. But all the women were in one cell and 2 of the women were badly concussed. Peter, the guy who was bashed very badly, it took people 5 hours to get him to hospital, and the first hospital wouldn't let him in. So there was another. So they took him to another.
Why
hospital.
was that?
They were scared of the Darlinghurst police. They were so scared. So yeah. But in those days, we had to come up with cash bail, and this was when there was no mobile phones, no ATMs. There were public phones in those days, and some people were prepared or were aware that they might need to be prepared, but others of us were oblivious and thought it'll be all right. And certainly not on the scale of arrests that happened and the brutality of them. And so people went away and got money out of their kitties. People from CAMP, the activist organisation, went back and got money they had from a dance the night before. The Star Hotel gave money. Sydney Uni, whose women's officer was involved as a 78er, or was involved in the events of 1978. We weren't called 78ers till about 20 years later. Went and got money from Sydney Uni.
Which Star Hotel was that?
The one Stella owned down below Sussex Street. Star or Sussex? The Sussex, I can't remember which. Anyway, so there was a big effort to go and contact people, particularly gay doctors and lawyers who were part of our, some were part of our group, some were known to each other, known to us, and we were outside. I didn't stay all night. I was a bit sore from walking around with the foot and lower leg in plaster, but other people stayed all night and it drizzled and it was cold. And people were finally bailed out at 10 a.m, although the women were taken about 2 a.m. down to Central Police Station and eventually bailed out there.
So what were the charges?
Resisting arrest, offensive language,
assaulting police, failing to disperse. That was the trifecta. The normal thing was if you arrested a demo, the police grabbed you and they charged you with assaulting them. And resisting arrest and saying rude things to them. Yeah.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes. So that was the way it was at the time. So basically there was a lot of organisation went on. There was a press conference at the camp rooms in Bleed Point Road the next morning, and a friend rang me and said, "Oh, this happened up at the Cross, and come along to the press conference." And I said I was there, and no, I don't want to go, because I was still too overwhelmed by everything. I was totally overwhelmed by what I'd seen. But there was a big effort starting to mobilise, to help people, and to campaign against the outrage that had happened to us. And what happened also on the Monday morning was that the Sydney Morning Herald published the names, addresses, occupations and ages of all 53 arrested. Oh. And years later they said, oh, that was what we did at the time. But they did that on page, I
actually looked it up a few weeks ago.
Okay.
I think it was actually Tuesday.
The Tuesday, yeah.
Yes,
thank
it
you.
was Tuesday.
It was the Tuesday.
Because they also included the people arrested on Monday.
Yeah. So basically that happened, and but what the normal practice was to put that in small print in the back of the page, at the back of the paper somewhere, rather than on a prominent page of page 3. And people's lives were shattered. Some people's lives were shattered. Some lost their jobs. Some lost their families. Some lost rental tenancies. It was a shocking invasion of privacy. Yeah. And
so the police released all that information to the media?
Well, that was the normal practice at the time, but as I said, the paper published it very prominently, not in the small print at the back, and that was what happened at the time. And outside the court on Monday, we had a demonstration, and the cops closed the court, which was illegal, and there were more arrests as well.
Another 6 people were arrested.
That was down in Liverpool Street.
In Liverpool Street, in the courts down there, because the people arrested had to come and make an appearance, and then
the charges be read out.
And so the Gay Solidarity Group got organised, and a lot of other people, a lot of other allies came in and helped and worked with us on that as well. And on the 5th, we had a mass meeting down here on the 1st of July, and there was very hectic debate about whether we should or should not have police permits. So we ended up having a march on the 15th of July with a police permit that ended up here. And can you guess what happened at that demonstration?
Police interaction?
Police interaction is a very polite way of saying that, Perrin, yes. There were 14 more people arrested, I think, at that stage. And there was 2,000 people there, which was a very big demonstration for us at that stage. And we had a lot of allies, we had union groups, Labor Party people, socialist groups, progressive churches come along and join us in that. And as I said, we had the Gay Solidarity group swung into action, and we had meetings with 60 to 80 people there every week, and we did media and lobbying, politicians and working with lawyers. And eventually, early the next year, most of the charges, but not all of the charges, were dropped.
But not before the demo in August, where more people were arrested.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were marching. We had the 4th National Homosexual Conference on the weekend of the 25th to the 27th of August, and we took a vote at the plenary on the Sunday afternoon to march down the footpath. We didn't have a permit, and there was a big demonstration in Hyde Park of the Christian rights. So Mary Whitehouse was out from England, and our local super bigot Christian was, Fred Nile was here as well, and some people got down there to that particular demo, and most of us were stopped with a phalanx of police across Taylor Square, and they were told to disperse, but of course not given the opportunity once again. And there was 104 people arrested on that day. Not brutally, it was daylight, and they couldn't get away with what they thought they could get away with up the cross.
So by that stage we were up to 178 people arrested. So our campaign, Drop the Charges campaign, continued. So we had, originally it was drop the charges of the people arrested on the night, but as we went on, it's drop all of the accumulating charges over time, an end to police violence, and the right to peaceful public assembly, which the police had not respected on any of the key occasions we came together. So that campaign continued throughout 78 and into 79 with the support of a lot of allies and a lot of media coverage. And in April 79, when the charges again came before the court, mysteriously most of the police evidence had been lost, and almost all of the charges were dropped. Not all, but almost all of the charges were dropped. Shortly after the Summary Offences Act was repealed. That was the legislation the police had used as the basis to arrest us, which denied the right to peaceful public assembly. The standard being something along the lines of any activity that the reasonable man may find offensive. So it was actually a catch-all piece of legislation which the police could use for any purpose.
And the courts at the time were probably not that keen to extend the definition of what the charges might entail to dismiss the charges. And
once that act was repealed, that changed a lot of things. So the campaign had successfully led to the repeal of that draconian legislation, and also to most of the charges being dropped, so people did not have convictions against their name.
Had they been actually convicted, or had they never come to the actual...
Well, the charges had been read, but
the conviction, they were never actually convicted.
No, because eventually the charges were dropped.
But some people did have convictions.
Yes, some people did. A small number of people had
Did they go through the court process, plead not guilty, and go through the court process, and then they were found guilty?
Some people, a couple of people actually pled guilty right at the beginning, just
because they couldn't cope with it.
To get it over with.
And we had pro bono legal assistance from the Council for Civil Liberties as well.
For those that were pleading not guilty and going through the court process?
Yes. Pro bono legal assistance, so, yeah. So really this led to an upsurge of activism because we had male homosexuality or male homosexual acts was still illegal until 1984 in this state. In 1973 they'd been repealed, that law had been repealed in South Australia, but we were one of the later states to still have those laws. And there was an upsurge of activism that came up after that first Mardi Gras, and 3 or 4 different legislative attempts were made in the New South Wales Parliament to decriminalise male homosexual acts, and it wasn't until 1984 that actually succeeded.
As a foreigner, were there ever laws against female homosexual acts, or was that going with Victoria's, they don't do that?
Exactly, because Australia was colonised by British, so we inherited the British legal code, which didn't include female homosexuality as a crime.
But once male homosexual sex was criminalised, it meant that attitudes to women were, well, as well as being very patriarchal and misogynist, the attitudes to women were very negative. So women kissing or displaying same-sex affection were arrested under the Summary Offences Act and various things like that. That could be used.
Because that would offend the reasonable man in the street. Yeah.
Did Michael
or even
have any
unreasonable one.
activity at that point in helping with his activism?
No,
he was
not
still a
at that
positive, I
stage.
think, wasn't he?
Not at that stage. But John Marsden was a prominent solicitor, and gay solicitor who helped us as well. Yeah.
Because Mr. Kirby didn't come out until a bit later.
A bit later, yeah, a bit
that's
later.
right. He was still in the positive.
Yeah.
Right? Michael Kirby being the judge, the High Court, was it? Tom?
All the courts. Did the 𝐭𝐸𝐲 play a part in it at all? Or because it wasn't sex crimes by then, well, with these circumstances, they weren't sent to 𝐭𝐸𝐲 at all? Or is it just because it was that?
Yeah, 𝐭𝐸𝐲 was quite notorious, wasn't it?
Yeah, from 57, so it's much earlier. But, because I'm from 𝐭𝐸𝐲 and I've been learning.
Oh, right. Well, you probably know more about it
but
than
I was
we
just
do.
curious, but I guess if it was more about like public nuisance in a sense and those kinds of things, as opposed to sex crimes, I guess it would have been all dealt with here as opposed to convicting them and sending them to 𝐭𝐸𝐲.
Yes, because I mean, our friend here has just mentioned 𝐭𝐸𝐲, where men convicted of homosexual offences were all sent for quite a while. Is that the case? Yeah.
I don't know exactly how long, but I think it was up until the early 70s at least. So.
Yeah. And the people who arrested here were charged with effectively demonstration type offences. Yeah.
Is the building, as we see it now, as it was back in 1978, or has it been changed?
It's pretty much the same, I think.
The upper level looks like a different brick, so it looks like it might have been gone up higher.
No idea, really.
It's very
Can't tell you.
Is that what they did?
Built heritage architecture.
Oh, is it? So it would have been built like this originally?
No. That's like an early extension.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Yes,
Yeah.
like in the 20s or 30s or something.
And there was a sign, a neon sign, a police sign, and a flagpole up there as well, on top of the awning.
I understand Peter Murphy was held in a cell down that direction somewhere.
Yep.
Is that cell still there?
I don't know.
I think all the cells are still there, they're just not used as cells.
Will they be part of the museum?
Well, they'll be repurposed.
Yes.
We won't be locking anyone up unless they haven't paid their admission fee.
Do you know which year it was first called the Mardi Gras?
Well, it was called Mardi Gras even before the 24th of June because the Australian article talked about a Mardi Gras. Now, on the poster for the night, it called it a festival, but it was dubbed a Mardi Gras beforehand by Mark McMahon, the co-president of CAMP. And the article in the Australian on the morning of the 24th of June and also the one on the 6th of June both referred to it as a Mardi Gras.
Okay.
So,
because it was a nighttime street party, when we were discussing the idea at camp, this whole idea of let's have a street party, let's have it at night. and it was Marg that said, "Oh, you mean like a Mardi Gras?" So that stuck.
My first Mardi Gras was 1981, and that was still it was still held in June because it was along the lines of Stonewall commemoration, and it went that way down Oxford Street. There were no barriers. And it was just basically a free for all. And I was 18 and working in the public service, and there were television cameras around, and I was freaked out at the idea of being outed on television, and my friends were very out and parading down the middle of the road, and here was I hiding behind the telegraph poles and such. But I'm glad I was in it.
Would have been great to be there.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I was there that early on. Yeah.
When did the police first march?
That was 90.
Probably at least 20 years ago.
At least 20 years ago.
Because police gay and lesbian liaison officers, they started in the 80s, the mid-80s. And the first ones who marched in the Mardi Gras parade were the GLOWs, the gay and lesbian liaison officers.
And it was after 2000, was it?
I think it was before that. Yeah,
the 90s?
Yeah, probably the 90s, yeah.
That started?
Yeah.
And I hear there's a push not to have police at all allowed to participate. Is that right? Is there some need?
Oh, some people don't want it.
Yeah, there's a few varying opinions on that. Some people believe the police should not be in the march at all, parade at all. Not necessarily for historical reasons, but because pretty horrible things are still happening, like deaths in custody.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
So there is this view they shouldn't be in the parade at all. There is another view that says, yes, but the police who participate in the parade are our own community.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't they be? And then there's another view that says, yes, they can march, it's our community, but don't wear your uniforms.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the uniform's symbolising our ongoing problems. So
it's hard to form a position on those three choices, isn't it?
Yes. I used to be in the middle. I've now gone to don't wear the uniforms.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that too.
Yeah, and some people have very mixed views, and some of us still find groups of police in uniforms quite intimidating.
By and large, things have changed a lot, and they are there to protect us because this is a big spectacle, and you see all the side streets barricaded off. That's not just traffic management, that is management against terrorism. Because there's nothing to stop a truck driving into the middle of the parade. So the police are there to protect.
And the Prime Minister marched this year, and that would have been a big worry for the security.
For security,
Indeed. Folks, have we got some other questions? Anyone down here got any other questions?
Wake up, Vivek. Come on, questions. He's waiting to go to the pub, aren't you? It really is.
Let me ask you a quick one. Do police here carry sidearms or not?
They do.
They do.
Okay, because that's another issue in the States about those people who have been traumatized by interaction with the police is that, and definitely they should not be carrying their sidearms while marching no matter what, even if they're in uniform, unless their code requires them to do that, in which case they can't be in uniform. So there's a whole issue about the weapons as well as...
That's why I say think no uniforms, because the sidearm is part of the uniform.
Yeah. It's a symbol of violence in a sense, isn't it, for some people?
Well, it's just not a great thing to have in a parade, is it?
But in America, you have a thing called, the police call it stick time, when they take their batons and they attack innocent people, and it's a fun and games thing for the police in America, I have heard.
Yes,
it has happened.
It doesn't happen very often in New York during the march.
Oh, good.
So that's as far as I'll go.
But it still happens sometimes, yes.
Yeah. Folks, any other questions? Because we want to thank you for coming along.
We want to sell your stuff. So.
We've got our book, which Fiona will hold up in a sec, which is called Voices from 1978. It includes bits of interviews with about 30 different people. It sells for $15. We've got badges, 78ers, always an ally, and you're welcome to buy them for the special price of $20 for both. The badge is $5, the book's $15. Do the arithmetic.
Good discount.
Yeah,
I reckon.
yeah.
Now Fiona's got the square, and I'll get the cash, and Robyn will.
I'll go around strong-arming everyone.
Yeah,
Robyn will hand them out.
Can I ask you if we want to make a donation to 𝐿𝐴𝐝𝐿?
Yes.
We can make a donation.
Yes, online.
Online?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
When are you going to be moving in here?
As soon as we can get the community health people out.
Have they got its location earmarked?
Oh, there's many, many thousands of square metres that are free that the state government owns.
Since COVID, people are...
You know, we just have, it's just a matter of, because both the government and the opposition leader have committed to us getting
good,
this. So in terms of getting the police station, it doesn't matter who is government. It matters for other things.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just actually concerned how the Murdochs actually had given $1 million. And I'm just like, and they've got Fox News, you know, that's quite interesting.
It's a bit of a turn of events, isn't it?
But, you know, oh yes.
How long have you been wanting to get this building?
Oh, well, the whole process of trying to get the museum going has been going for many years, but at least a decade. But this process has been going about a year.
Yeah, I did actually hear about it. The
minister announced it at the opening concert.
Okay.
For World Pride.
Yeah, but I did actually hear about
Any other
maybe
cash buyers
something
come and see me?
Star Observer or something like that. I read something about it.
Might have been in the Star after that.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
But the opposition has committed to it as
Oh,
well.
that's going to be awesome.
So perfect place.
Absolutely. You know, Taylor
and right
Square.
next to Taylor Square, Oxford Street.
I just would love to have the rainbow across Taylor Square.
You should have beaten Victoria to it. I mean, that Pride Centre is fantastic in
I
Sydney, but at least it's happening. And,
This will just be a museum. It won't be a meeting place. Just our museum, and so we'll have a permanent exhibition and changing exhibitions.